world changed in a matter of hours. The United States and Israel launched a massive airstrike campaign against Iran, marking the beginning of a full-scale war that would ripple across the Middle East and shake the global economy. The operation, called Operation Epic Fury, began while negotiations over Iran's nuclear program were still underway. Within days, Iran retaliated with hundreds of missiles and drones targeting Israel, U.S. bases, and Gulf allies. Iran also closed the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most critical oil choke points. This was not just a regional conflict, it was a war that reached every continent. Tensions had been building for years. The U.S. had withdrawn from the nuclear deal in 2018, reimposed sanctions, and pursued a maximum pressure campaign. In 2025, a 12-day war between Israel and Iran already damaged Iran's nuclear sites. But in January 2026, after massive protests in Iran were brutally crushed, President Donald Trump threatened military action. By February, the U.S. had amassed aircraft carriers, hundreds of aircraft, and naval assets in the region, the largest buildup since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. On February 28, 2026, the order was given. U.S. missiles and Israeli jets struck Iran's military, government, and nuclear facilities. Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei was among those killed. Iran immediately retaliated in Operation True Promise of War, launching missiles at Israel, U.S. bases in Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, and the UAE, and at oil facilities across the Gulf. In traditional military terms, the U.S. and Israel gained rapid advantages. Within a week, Iran's missile attacks dropped by 90%. Iran lost over 90% of its navy, many missile launchers, and weapons production sites. Israel claimed to have killed over 250 Iranian leaders, including the supreme leader and most of the senior military command. But Iran's strategy was different. It didn't try to win a conventional war. It aimed to survive, impose costs, and drag the conflict onto the global stage. Iran attacked U.S. allies in the Gulf, damaging energy infrastructure and killing dozens. Most critically, it shut down the Strait of Hormuz. More than 150 freight ships, including many oil tankers, were stuck. Global oil and gas prices spiked. Gas prices in the U.S. reached their highest level since 2022. The human toll has been devastating. Per Iranian sources, over 3,400 people have been killed inside Iran, with more than 26,000 injured. In Lebanon, over 3,100 civilians and militants died. In Israel, 23 soldiers and 28 civilians were killed, with thousands injured. Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, Bahrain also suffered civilian and military casualties. UNICEF reported that more than 1,100 children were killed or injured. Hundreds of thousands were displaced. Millions of children couldn't go to school. Schools, hospitals, and even UNESCO World Heritage sites were damaged or destroyed. Internet access in Iran was restricted for 87 days, allowing only government-approved users to connect. The war's greatest impact may not be on the battlefield, it's in global markets. By closing the Strait of Hormuz, Iran disrupted the largest oil supply disruption in history. Oil and gas prices surged. Fertilizer prices skyrocketed, threatening food security worldwide. Aviation and tourism industries were hit hard. The U.S. military cost was already estimated at $25 billion by March, with a request for an additional $200 billion. Arab countries suffered over $120 billion in losses. Iran assessed its own economic damage at least $300 billion, possibly up to $1 trillion. From Southeast Asia to Europe to Australia, economies faced recession risks. The U.S. burned through critical munitions like Tomahawk missiles and Patriot interceptors, leaving other theaters like Europe and Asia vulnerable. In many countries, blame fell on the United States, fueling anti-U.S. sentiment and making future cooperation on China, Russia, or other global threats more difficult. The war reshaped global alliances. The E3, the UK, France, and Germany backed proportionate defensive measures against Iranian missiles. NATO intercepted ballistic missiles over Turkey and deployed air defense systems. The UK used its Cyprus bases to defend Jordan's airspace. European nations sent warships to protect Cyprus. But the US began the war without fully consulting allies, then demanded they open the Strait of Hormuz, a mission even the US Navy wasn't prepared to undertake. Iran's proxies, Hezbollah, Houthis, militias in Iraq and Syria, joined the fight. Hezbollah and Israel escalated into a full conflict in Lebanon, drawing in more regional powers. The US and Israel agreed to a temporary ceasefire on April 8th, brokered by Pakistan. But Iran refused to reopen Hormuz, blaming Israeli strikes in Lebanon. A dual blockade emerged, the US Navy blockading Iran and Iran blockading the Persian Gulf. Who is winning? The US and Israel achieved major tactical victories. Iran's military is severely degraded, its leadership decimated, its nuclear program set back. But ambitious goals, regime change, entirely ending Iran's nuclear ambitions, completely stopping proxy support, remain unachieved. The clerical regime still holds power. Iran, though militarily weaker, has achieved strategic goals. It raised the price of war for the US, destabilized global energy markets, exposed limits of American coercive power, and shifted the conflict's center of gravity outward. As one analyst put it, wars are decided by more than battlefield metrics. As of May 2026, the conflict remains in a fragile stalemate. A temporary ceasefire holds, but strikes continue. Iran's president says Iran is ready to assure the world it is not pursuing nuclear weapons, but trust is shattered. The Strait of Hormuz remains a flashpoint. Global economies remain vulnerable. The risk of further escalation, drawing in more regional or even global powers, is real. This war has already changed the world. Energy markets, food security, global alliances, the balance of power in the Middle East, and the perception of US power itself. This is a war that began with airstrikes in the Middle East, but its shockwaves have reached every corner of the globe. It shows how quickly regional conflict can become a global crisis, and how fragile the systems we rely on really are. The question now is, can the world recover? And what will this war mean for the next generation?